Welcome to Corinne's Picks, a show that celebrates the great careers of artists and looks at remarkable works of art. Today we have an incredible filmmaker. We have Michel Negroponte with us. He's on Skype from the Catskills, New York. Welcome to the show, Michel. Today we're going to be
Thank
discussing.
you.
Today,
Thank you for inviting me back.
yeah, today we're going to be discussing your latest film. I watched it last night and it was really enthralled. I have so many questions about this film. So tell us a little bit about Herd.
Well, herd as in a herd of cows, quite literally. It's a film that I started now a couple of years ago when uh, a herd of cows, quite literally, became my new neighbors. They're on the edge of my property. There's a farmer, and he brought in a herd of about, well, at the time, 25 cows. It's a herd of cows. Uh, the breed is called belted Gauloways, and they're quite unusual and not that common in the United States. And they're incredibly beautiful. I mean, many of them are black and white, some of them are a reddish color, but they have these white belts around the middle of their bodies. Someone said to me that they look like designer cows, um, very beautiful and quite exotic. Anyway, I became quite intrigued, and I was there quite literally the day the cows were delivered in this huge van, and I was intrigued, and I went back, the next day to visit a second time, and I filmed again, and there was just something about this herd of cows that attracted me and sort of perked my curiosity, and I just kept going back. And I didn't have a plan in mind like that, but I just started to film them, and that's where it all started.
Yeah, I'm curious. Well, first of all, before I ask my next question, can we just see the trailer so that the audience can have some kind of context in terms of what we're talking about?
Sure.
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Often at night when the heaven.
So that was a clip of Herd, new documentary by Michelle Negroponte. Michelle, what was your motivation in doing this documentary?
Well, in part, it's about the concept of animal personhood. I think it's an international movement now. And there are people who are trying to give rights, certain kinds of legal rights, in fact, to animals. And I think that, you know, we as humans have such a curious relationship. to animals in general. I mean, we have pets, dogs, cats. We love them. We cherish them. And then we go to a restaurant and eat a steak dinner. So there's something about that paradox, that uneven relationship that we as humans have to animals that I'm intrigued with. And so I'm also intrigued with the idea, and though the film doesn't address this directly, about the concept of personhood. How do we relate to and how do we treat the fellow beings on this planet? Whether it's animals, birds, fish, whatever it may be. And I think it's an environmental concern that many people are getting to be much more sensitive to.
So, what kind of I wasn't sure during the whole film what kind of farm is it? What is the purpose of having the animals there? Are they for food? Or is it for dairy? Like what kind of is it a sanctuary? What is that farm?
This is more, it's a good question. It's more of a sanctuary. I mean, in the sense that um, these animals are not going to be slaughtered. They're on that farm and they're actually replenishing the soil by going to the bathroom. I mean, there's a lot of rich material in cow dung. And so the people who now own the farm want to be able to grow different kinds of crops, and they're allowing the cows to refurbish the soil. When the cows get older, they will be culled, but for the time being, those cows are just going to live out their lives on that farm. So it is a sanctuary, is really a better description. So I learned a lot about cows myself when I was making the film, and these would be generally referred to as beef cattle. It's very different than dairy cattle. Dairy cattle are milked every day. They have a lot of human contact. These cows really have relatively little human contact. I mean, you see periodically a farmer will come and deliver hay to the fields, but they're on their own and they're moved from one pasture to another. And I was given complete access to the farm, and I was pretty much alone with them for, gosh, I was filming on and off for a year and a half. So I saw them through all the different seasons. I saw new calves arrive. It was a very complete and engaging experience for me.
I think it's really interesting that you say these cows will be basically slaughtered when in their old age because it brings up some old feelings that I've had. I was a vegan for about 2 years because I saw this film called Vegucation, and I saw what factory farming does to animals. And basically, I started eating meat again mainly because I didn't feel like I was as healthy. But also, I had a really rigorous job and was not very organized with my diet. But I still have the same feelings at heart that this is not traditional husbandry that we do in the industrialized world. I feel that, you know, the farming on a small scale where you're basically just killing a minimum amount of animals to survive to eat. Because animals, I have a cat. My cat eats meat. So, and also, we're wearing leather. We're using a lot of goods from animals. Even though, so I mean, we really do have to. There's shades of gray to the argument, but I think that your film is really complex. It brings up a lot of complex issues, and it's really shown visually.
Thank you. Well, the film is an essay film. It really is about a lot of ideas that are folded into the material that I filmed of the cows. And I use these black and white sections and these historic references to somehow contrast, how, well, the cows to humans. And one of the things that I felt as I was making the film is that over the last, many, many decades, hundreds, thousands of years, animals and cows have evolved. And to some extent, humans have devolved. I mean, I think that humans don't come across terribly well in my film. I mean, they're always doing things that seem curious and bizarre. They're polluting the earth, they're slaughtering animals, they're branding them. They're rounding them up and moving them from one place to the next. And that's all represented in the black and white older footage that I use. You saw a little bit of that in the trailer. So it's an essay, it's about ideas. It's not just a simple, straightforward portrait of a herd of cows. It is about a lot of ideas that I was mulling over and thinking about as I was making the film.
No, it's truly an absolute love story to cows, and we do get a sense on their personhood. But right now we're going to cut to a commercial break, and then we'll be back and really get deep into this film.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Can't believe you're doing this alone.
I've done it before.
I remember. You threw your back out. How you holding up?
Hand me that board.
Nothing wrong with getting help.
I'm good.
I did it when Felicia left.
I'll figure it out.
I know you will, but you don't have to do it alone. That's all I'm saying.
If I promise to look into it, will you drop it and help me build this fence?
Now you need my help.
It can be a real pain sometimes, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. I'm your host, Corinne Basabe. We've been talking to Michel Negroponte about his latest film, Herd. Before the commercial break, we were talking about the concept of personhood and how you try to convey that in Herd. What struck me was throughout the film the amount of play that the animals had, the babies and the older cows, that playfulness. It's like it would be really hard to eat a steak when you see those cows playing.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I spent a lot of time, and there was just one endless surprise after another. I mean, for instance, I didn't know that cows frolicked. And there's a scene in the film where you see a mother cow and her daughter frolicking in the fields together. And it's absolutely lovely. It's just remarkable to see the way they relate to one another. I think in certain ways, I think the film has a lot of sub themes, and one of them is actually motherhood. I can't help but think that thousands of years ago that Homo sapiens learned something about parenting by watching cows and how they relate to their children. I mean, these are incredibly sentient beings. They have an emotional life, and if you look carefully and you spend time with cows, like I did, you'll never cease to be amazed at how present they are and how interactive they are and how curious they are. I mean, I was I was the I was sort of the attention of the calves quite often, and they came up to me, they licked me, they nudged me, and anyway, I think it was a remarkable experience and a privilege to spend so much time with this herd of cows.
You know, what did you think about the sounds that they make? Do you think that they seem like did they differentiate how they moved, or was it did you get a sense of language in there?
Yes, well, I can't say that I'm an expert at this, but I certainly realized that when the cows talk to their calves, they use a particular tone, which is very different than the way that they moo when they're trying to communicate with each other in different ways. But there definitely is a language or some kind of subtext to the way in which they're talking to one another, they're mooing to one another. And I can't say that my hearing is sensitive enough to discern a great deal, but I certainly noticed that they use different tones and different manners of mooing to one another.
Well, they seem to use their heads with some kind of body language, like nudging each other, like move over here, I want to turn to eat, or I'm not your mother, move, go over there, that's your mother.
Yeah, well, they use their heads to communicate in a variety of ways. One of the many ways that they use their heads is to play, and there's a scene in the film where some of the older calves, they're called heifers, are teaching the newborn calves how to play and how to butt heads. They also use it to develop a hierarchy within the herd. There are some cows that are older and kind of the queen or the queens, I should say, of the herd, and they sometimes butt the younger cows out of the way when they want to get to the food. So again, there's a lot of physicality in the way that they communicate to one another. Again, I can't say that I'm an expert at discerning how, what all that stuff means, but it's certainly apparent in the film that they use sounds, they use body language, and they use their bodies in a variety of ways to communicate with each other.
You know what I thought in the beginning of the film? I thought the film was going to go in a certain direction because you spend a lot of time with like the three amigos. There's three cows that seemed like they had a friendship. And then later on, I think one of the cows was taken to another farm, the male. But I think the viewer would see, oh my God, cows have friends. Of all the cows, these three hung out with each other. They were all about the same age.
Right. Well, I think there was one cow in particular. It was the first calf that was born on the property. And in the very beginning, I just thought she was so beautiful and so remarkable that I kind of focused on her and then her mother's close by and maybe some of her closer siblings. But then I think you're right. The bull is actually moved off the farm to another breeding operation, and then they're only cows. There are no males, there are no bulls for a period of time. And then I think I try to broaden out, and there are other cows that sort of I mean, there was one cow, for instance, number 99, that I spent a great deal of time with. I should explain that. The cows don't have names. They have numbers, which are actually on their ears. And I didn't think it was my prerogative, because I don't own the cows, to name them. So I knew them by their numbers. And so when I would arrive there, one morning, for instance, I would go, well, 106, how are you today? And 99, oh, you're looking very well. And I'd use their numbers and that's how I got to know them.
I think a kind
I
of
used,
amusing part of the film was when they brought the bull. I kind of felt there was a little bit of flirting going on between the cows and the bull.
Oh, absolutely. That's pure flirting. I mean, when that bull arrived, all those cows were incredibly focused on the new man who just arrived in town. And it was a major event. You could hear them, reacting very intensely to the arrival of the new bull. It was quite funny. I mean, it's amazing. And I think he was a little overwhelmed, to tell you the truth.
I thought he was very kind of shy and afraid. Like he didn't seem like his full age, like a full dominant bull yet.
Well, he had literally just arrived, and when he did, I think he was the focus of so much attention that he might have been a little overwhelmed. But again, cows are really fascinating creatures. We think that we know what a cow is. There's a lot of cow mythology in our culture, ranging from Elsie the cow to westerns to all sorts of things. And yet, when you look at anything very, very carefully and very intensely, nothing becomes familiar. Everything just becomes a surprise. And that's one of the wonderful things about making documentary films, is that you tend to embed yourself with the subject and look very carefully. You give something a long, slow look, and it's one surprise after another. And that's what I find, that's what I try to incorporate in the films that I make.
Yeah, I love the fact that you let the footage just speak for itself. I mean, your film is extremely complex, and you deal with many subjects, including sexuality. I mean, you could have easily taken out the footage of the female cows trying to have sex with each other, but you left it in. It's kind of like a little bit of social commentary, or kind of, dog whistling some of the issues that our society is dealing with right now.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was also it was sort of a comedic break. I mean, but the cows are sexual beings. And if there's no bull and those cows go into heat, what I discovered is that they mount one another and they go through all the motions of having sex. But clearly they're not, because they're two cows. And there is that passage. It's a montage of images, which is quite fascinating to me, because, again, there's a lot of physicality, there's a lot of physical communication, and you're reminded that these are sentient beings, that they have an emotional life, and that they're mammals, and like us, they have urges and drives. And I think that's an important passage in the film.
Was there a choice by the farmers not to have some kind of shelter? Because that scene where it's snowing, they look so cold. To me, they seem cold, and the baby cow dies of frost. Yeah, he dies. He freezes to death. Was that a choice not to house him, or is that the way it's normally done?
No, amazingly enough, there was a shelter, but they never used it. It has to do with this breed of cows. They're called belted Galloways, and they're incredibly sturdy, and they can withstand temperatures of up to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what they do. They just stay out there all the time. I filmed through some weather that was astonishing. I was frozen. I was an icicle. You mentioned the baby calf that died, and I think it probably died because there was something else wrong. I don't quite know what it was, but nature has a way of filtering out, the weaker uh, calves, and the cold might have been, the crowning blow. But I think there were other things going on as well. I just don't know.
We have about 3 minutes left. Tell us what has been the reception to the film Heard so far?
I think people enjoy the film a great deal. I've just started putting the film into the festival circuit. It premiered in Greece at a festival called Thessaloniki. It's in the city of Thessaloniki, which is the second largest city in Greece, and it got a really terrific reception. And then it played more recently another film festival in New Brunswick, New Jersey, a festival called the New Jersey International Film Festival, and it won the prize for Best Documentary. So I'm proud of that. I was very pleased. And they will be doing a, a second screening of the award-winning films from the New Jersey International Film Festival in October, a few months away from now. But so Heard will be playing in New Jersey at the Rutgers Film Co-op, and maybe we can put up some information at the end that a link to the film. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that.
Okay. We'll have to have you back again. I'd love to continue talking about this subject. It's one that's really close to my heart because I've struggled with the issue of to eat or not to eat, because I do love animals, and I don't really like the factory farming that goes on in this country. But I'm always grateful when you come to Corinne's Picks, and as usual, I really enjoy talking to you. Any last words?
No, I would agree with you completely about the complexity of this issue of eating meat. And I'm also very torn. As I say in the film, I eat chicken and fish, but I don't eat beef and pork. But I really recognize that it's not a simple issue. And I'm empathetic. I mean, there are people who just love eating red meat. And if you have a culinary obsession with eating fine steaks, I'm going to try to be liberal about it and say, let people make their own choices.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on the show. Until next time.
Thank you very much.